Hi everyone, I'm Beth Ann Nemish and I'm going to do a short video about how to use my two newest rulers. These are French curve rulers. This is the Lily Lines number 1 and Lily Lines number 2. They're a part of my Garden Lines line of rulers, which I'm really excited to finally have available to everybody. So I'm going to do a little demonstration on the best way to use these. I'm going to be drawing today, and when I draw using rulers, I always use a drawing wheel. Now I sell these little purple ones, and mine are sized for my favorite drawing utensils, which are really fine tip things. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. What it does is it allows you to mimic the hopping foot as you're drawing, so that you can draw exactly what you're going to end up sewing, which is, I think, really important. These rulers can be used on a long arm sewing machine or a domestic sewing machine, as long as you have a ruler foot for your domestic sewing machine, and that has a high wall on it, which allows you to run up against the edge of the ruler and not sneak underneath. So let's go ahead and do some drawing down here on the table. Thanks. These are the two new rulers, Lily Lines 2 and Lily Lines 1 over here. The first thing I'd like to point out is the compressed acrylic that I've chosen for these rulers. It's a very, very, very pale green. It reads as nearly clear from the top, but from the side there is a glowing edge, and this is because it's a special compressed acrylic that bounces the light inside the ruler. The result, though, is exactly what I was hoping for, which is that the lines that are inscribed with the laser, in fact, pick up the light and bounce them inside the ruler. And so even on white fabric, the lines actually iridesce like an aquamarine color, so you can see it beautifully on white fabric. That's one of my pet peeves about clear rulers, is that it's really tough to see on light colors, and it shows up just as nicely on dark colors. So let's go ahead and actually do some design work. I have here a basic marking layout that you would draw on the space on your quilt. You would draw this with a marking utensil or perhaps fine line chalk. This is, pretty standard quadrant style design. So what I'm going to do is just mark a few registration lines on the paper, or you could do this directly on the quilt. So I can see a grid underneath here, so I'm going to make a random decision that 3 inches on each of the major axes of this design, I'm going to make a simple dot. So I have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make a little dot, and that is all of the registration that I'm going to make on the quilt, or the drawing paper in this case. So what I'm going to do is choose any registration lines on any curve, and it's kind of a mystery as to what the stuff turns out to be, so it's infinite choices, really. So I'm going to choose to line up this mark right here, and I'm going to put it on the dot. And to make that mark easy for myself to find over and over again, I'm actually going to draw with my Sharpie. Oh, I know, it's just so scary. But that actually comes off really easily with isopropyl alcohol, and I keep alcohol wipes in my studio. And now over here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to choose a mark, and I'm going to place it exactly on my registration line, and I'm going to help myself remember where it is by doing that. And sometimes it's easy to also mark with a little Sharpie the additional registration lines, just to make it really fast for me to flip this ruler back and forth. So now I am ready to go. I'm going to use my drawing wheel here. I'm going to place my Sharpie, or you would use a marking utensil on your quilt if you want to pre-mark. You don't have to. This could actually just be your hopping foot. That can just be you ready to sew. I'm going to start sewing, or drawing as the case may be, right at the registration line, and I will simply swoop up until I touch the next line. Now clearly I would put my needle down, and that would be my hopping foot. It's not going to move, but it'll probably shift as I draw a little bit. So we're going to shift, and I exactly made up those lines again, right on the registration lines. Perfect. So my goal with these rulers was to be very, very precise and have high precision rulers. And we just keep flipping our way around the quilt. Again, we want the precision line to be exactly on the registration dot that I have made. So right there, and on the other side, match up the precision line right there. And as long as I have at least one registration line in each quadrant, I don't have to do any additional measuring or marking. Okay, I'm looking for matching my registration line on the dot, exactly on the dot, and then right where my registration line touches the guideline. So I've gone all the way around on this drawing, and now we can turn this into a frame. We could leave it just like a line drawing, or we can now start to add layers of embellishment. So one of the simplest things to do is to simply match up the edge of the acrylic with the edge that we've already drawn and re-sew this entire shape, and that will give us a 1/4 inch echo. Also, there's an inscribed 1/4 inch line, so you can shift it in again, and that will give you a 1/2 inch echo. But I actually prefer to do asymmetrical designs. So what I'm going to do is actually switch and just choose a completely new shape off of these French curves and do an interesting design on the inside here. So let's go ahead and play with that idea for just a moment. I think maybe something like that would look pretty, because that would give me a fun area to embellish on the inside. So let's kind of check to see how that might work. And if I swoop this way, I'm not going to quite hit the registration line, so I need to tip it just a little bit so that I know that I'm going to hit the registration line, at least in both places here. So I am, and conveniently, that is a nicely marked 2 inches away from the center. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself a registration mark 2 inches away from the center, going all the way around. And I'm going to mark here on my ruler exactly in those spots. So I'm going to have this line is going to be where I'm going to put on the center registration. And this one here is going to go right to that line right there. I'm going to put a few extra marks just to help me out. And we're ready to go ahead and sew, or in our case, draw. So let's go ahead and draw. Here we go, with a different shape right to the registration line. And now I can flip this, line it up again. Match up my registration lines very, very perfectly. Should definitely. Okay, let's do one more side together. We flip this and we're going to match it up. There. And now we flip this again. Match it carefully. And again. So I think you get the idea. Now, it's always a great idea to pre-draw these designs and test them to make sure that you're completely happy with them. I'm going to leave this side blank, and let's do something interesting with this side over here, just as an idea. So if I had done these drawings and they were set up to draw like this, now I could maybe echo this line by simply pulling in right there, lining up the line on the ruler with the inside line here. I could switch it so that I have a little bit of an asymmetrical frame. So perhaps I keep the pivot point here exactly the same and I only shift it a little bit. So that might look really pretty. To give myself a second line, I could do that. Anyway, I could repeat that again on the other side. Lots and lots of design ideas of repeating and flipping and adding new layers to designs. So let's do a different look on this side of the line. So just for fun, we don't have to only use the 4 angled lines. We can also use, of course, the 90-degree lines to add additional designs, and they can repeat this design. So I could literally twist this design and redo exactly these 4 corners, or I can add something completely different using a different ruler. What you want to look out for, though, is these lines of symmetry. And you don't want your ruler to cross these lines of symmetry unless you're prepared to sort of make an interlocking design, which is a little bit more of a challenge, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. So for now, let's make sure that with our hopping foot guideline here, we are not going to cross that line. So I'm going to just check it to be sure that it doesn't go over, and that's the case. So I'm going to make kind of a teardrop shape by using this side of the curve. Here's my alignment line here, and again here, I can line those 2 things up. So here we go, let's go ahead and draw that. So we'll make a fun little accent teardrop on this side of the line. And now we'll flip it, line up our points exactly on the lines again. And do this side. So, oh, my marker skipped there, but you can see this beautiful inside curve on this side. Now, if we wanted to, we could do something really interesting and special over here. We could outline these shapes. I can make my ruler go directly to the inside here. So my ruler was here, I could shift it. And I could do an inside shape and echo this for some custom work inside of this shape. With 7 different curves at your disposal, you literally have unlimited amounts of creativity to stitch and flip and reverse. So next I'm going to show you is a couple of designs and how to do an interlocking look to really get the most out of these rulers.